Welcome back, everybody. Trying out another deck tech video. This time it is Breya Ethereum Shaper. This is one of my... I've been updating it over the years, but this has been one of my favorite decks for the longest time. She is artifact based. She's 4 colors, decent stats and bodies for her mana cost. Relevant abilities, just generally good, and leads to multiple avenues. For creatures, going through, I've got like 21 creatures, a planeswalker, 19 instant sorceries, 23 artifacts, 2 enchantments, and I'm personally thinking about updating the land count a little bit. Probably want to go up to like 35, 36. But I do run a lot of mana rocks, so I'm not 100% positive on that yet. Don't need to do some testing. Starting off, we got an Ethereum Terramander. 1 mana, 1/1. Can't block flyers. Adapts. Gets bigger. Ravager. Good sacrifice outlet. Generally good artifact reacher in general. Baleful Strix. 2 mana, 1/1. Flying Death Touch. Good blocker. Draws us a card. Chronomancer. This is a Warhammer 40k card, a 2 mana 1/1 flying. I can pay 1 and sack another artifact to draw a card. It has Unearth. A little bit of extra card draw never hurts. And we run a lot of artifacts, so just decent options. Kiri is from Fallout, 2 mana 1/3. Legendary robot. When it connects to a player, I draw cards equal to its base power. You can make it a copy of a different one by exiling a non-token artifact you control and gains the same ability, so another good card draw engine. Osseous Stick Twister. 2 mana 2/2, lifelink, sometimes relevant. End of turn, it's fairly easy to get Delirium in this deck because he just lands a bunch of artifact creatures, instant sorceries. It's just built, it's relatively easy. End of your turn, each opponent either has to discard a card, sack a non-land permanent, or they take damage equal to its power, and we have plenty of ways to pump its power. Oswald Fiddlebinder is a 2 mana 2/2 with a white version of Birthing Pod for artifacts. Fairly decent. Psychic Frog, 2 mana 1/2. When it connects to a player or planeswalker, you draw a card. Discard a card to put a 1/1 counter on it, or you can exile 3 cards to give it flying. All around purpose, good card, very strong. Steel Overseer, 2 mana 1/1. You can tap it to put a 1/1 counter on each of your artifact creatures. You make a lot of tokens, and most of our creatures are artifacts, so this just helps the entire board for the most part. Digside Engineer, 3 mana 3/3. Whenever we cast an artifact spell, we can pay 2, and if we do, we make a construct. Constructs are just generally good. We run a lot of artifacts, so they're usually pretty big. Pure Recruiter. This is a holdover from the previous build to this list when it was more combo-centric, but still a generally good tutor option. It can grab Trinket Mage, it can grab Urza, it can grab Bronze Guardian if it's early enough. Thought Monitor, there's Frog, Overseer. This thing grabs a lot of different options, so just generally good. Master of Ethereum, 3 mana 3/3. Power and Toughness, 3 mana artifact creature. Power and Toughness are each equal number of artifacts you control, and it pumps your other artifact creatures. Again, a lot of artifacts, a lot of artifact creatures in this deck. Just a good pump for it. Trinket Mage. I've always loved this card. It lets you search for some decent graveyard removal, targeted hate towards like activated abilities, make a thing that makes bodies, general mass removal, or lands. Just helps fixes, smooth stuff out. I've always enjoyed this card. Crypto Thrall is a 4 mana 3/3, and it gives your other artifact creatures hexproof. If they're harder to target, they have to use a Wrath, and it makes it easier on us. This is one I've been trying out, and I'm probably going to start taking this out before too long, probably for a land. This is Exterminator Magmart. It's a 4 mana 5/3 Phyrexian Construct. Whenever I cast an instant or sorcery that targets only a single non-land permanent an opponent controls, basically it gives you an extra copy to target it in 2 different opponent stuff, and it has Regenerate. I just haven't seen gotten a lot of use out of this. Indomitable Archangel, 4 mana 4/4 flyer for flying. Metalcraft. All of our artifacts have Shroud, and again, high artifact count, we will have Shroud a lot of the time. Same thing, same concept with the Crypto Thrall. It's harder for them to target our stuff, and so they have to use mass removal rather than targeted removal. Urza, Prince of Crude, 4 mana 2/3. Artifact creatures I control get +2/+2. And then for 6, I can make a copy of target artifact, and it becomes a 1/1 soldier. Artifact dude. So later down the line, we can see a couple of things that we wouldn't mind copying, but just it's an anthem. It helps keep the board going steady. It's a pretty decent card. Bronze Guardian, 5 mana star 5. It has double strike and ward 2. Other artifacts have control of ward 2. So just a lot of protection and trying to go wide with these things. And then its power is equal number of artifacts we control, so it's going to usually hit pretty hard. Cap Cannoneer, 6 mana 4/4 with Improvise, ward 4, and then whenever it or another artifact enters, it gets a 1/1 counter and can't be blocked. Just a good solid beater. Urza, Chief Artificer, 3 and Esper for a 4/5. He has affinity for artifact creatures, so he's usually going to be closer to just Esper mana for us. Artifact creatures we control have Menace, and at the beginning of our end step, we make a Construct that just helps flood the board, keeps big bodies coming out. Yeah, it's just generally good in this deck. Thought Monitor, 6 or 7 mana 2/2, affinity for artifacts. Flyer, ETB, enters, draws 2 cards. Generally good card. Love this card. The one Planeswalker in the deck is Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas. 4 mana for 3 loyalty. With a +1, you look to the top 5, you may reveal an artifact, you put that in your hand, the rest are on your bottom. For a -1, you can make target artifact become a 5/5 permanently. And then the bid one, -4, target player loses X life, and you gain X life, where X is twice the number of artifacts you control. I've always liked this card. Played it when it came out. Played it back in Standard. I've always liked this card if I've had it. And then for our instants and sorceries, we have an Angel's Grace. I usually get targeted at our table, so I just like to have some catch-all save answers. Something like Angel's Grace just keeps me life for 1 extra turn. Sometimes that's all you ever need. An Orm's Chant, just always there for the annoying player, or whenever you need you don't want somebody attacking you, so it's like, nope, you can't attack this turn, or just save the table from the big scary monster dude. Path to Exile. I like targeted removal. I run a fair amount. I run also a fair amount of Wraths. I just like to be prepared for what's on the table. Path to Exile. Once in a blue moon you hit your own stuff, but it's usually there to get your opponent's stuff out of the way. Sure, it isn't a land, but usually getting the big scary thing off the table is usually my preferred avenue on that. Similar thing with Swords of Plowshares, but it's better. I'd rather give them life than give them a land, but I like redundancy. Arcane Denial, hard counter for 2, namely because it doesn't have multiple pips in it, so that's why I run Arcane Denial and my other small counter suite in this deck. I don't like having multiple duplicate pips and stuff, so I try to keep that on the lower end of the deck. They draw a card. They draw up to 2. We draw 1 on the next upkeep. It's generally a strong card. Damn. This serves dual purpose in the sense that it is targeted removal. Again, it's double pip, but with the overload being just a wrath effect, I like the versatility on this. Echoing Truth, good spot removal, hits any non-land and anything other people that just happen to have the same thing. Really good against tokens. Plunge into Darkness. This is another holdover from the older style list I had, but for 1 and a black instant, you choose one. Sack any number of creatures, you gain 3 life per, or pay X, then you look to the top X and put 1 in your hand to exile the rest. Or you can entwine it for an extra black. Usually it's just a good, I need to dig for an answer to something, so I'll pay a little bit of life that I have that I can work with, and plays okay with Breya because we have a bunch of artifact dudes, and we can just gain some life back if need be. Definitely been in that position. Remand, I know it's a soft counter, but it draws you a card. It's usually a bad time walk in Commander, but effectively still a time walk. I like it. Reprieve, namely again, no double pips, and it just helps you can play around with things a little bit, with it being a soft counter and that they get it back. Similar concept with Reprieve. Difference is this gets around non-counterable stuff. Just generally good, I like it. Vindicate, I know it's sorcery speed, and I know it costs 3, but it hits anything, and I like the versatility on it. Wear Tear, I always advocate for stuff like this. Artifact removal, enchantment removal, possibly both. Cheap, easy, efficient. Windfall, sometimes you just dump your hand and you need a new hand while if somebody else is a little bit slower on playing their cards. Sometimes you just don't have good stuff in your hand. It's like, I need something else, and I just always like Windfall effects. Back to Fiction, 4 mana instant, reveal top 5, you choose an opponent, they separate them in 2 piles, you get 1. You can either politic with your opponents to get what you want, or if your play group, it's a mind game in multiple different ways. Either you can politic with people and get what they want, or you can try and be somewhat reclusive and not give away too many hints and see if they just mess up and give you the better pile. Depends on who you give it to. If you got somebody who's familiar with what you're playing and whatnot, they're usually going to be able to separate them into worse piles for you. Or if your group allows table talk while they're doing that. I still like the card. I like the mind games it does with people. Supreme Verdict. I know it has triple colored pips, but it's a hard counter, can't be countered, or hard wrath, meaning it can't be countered. I like 4 mana board wipes generally. Speaking of Wrath of God, if I had a Damnation, it'd probably be in here too. I'd probably swap out. I don't know what to swap out right now, but 4 mana, destroys all creatures, can't be regenerated, speaks for itself, standard rate. This is also an older card at this point, but I like Route because it's an instant speed Wrath if need be, and it also has the no regen clause. Not super relevant nowadays, but still pretty decent. Okay. The next card we're looking at is Strat Mastery. 3 red for a sorcery. It's a living death for artifacts. We usually have a bunch of artifact dudes, or we can sacrifice a bunch of our artifacts off through a Ravager, or Breya, and then do this, wipe all the other artifacts off the table, and just have a huge army and most of our stuff back. Thoughtcast. 5 mana affinity for artifacts, draws 2 cards. Usually it's 1 mana at most points in the game. Just 1 mana draw 2 is usually pretty strong. Engineered Explosives costs X, and it has Sunburst, meaning that it enters a battlefield with a charge counter on it for each color of mana spent on it. So if you spend 1, it has 1, like a blue mana, it has 1 counter on it. If you spend a black and a blue, it has 2 counters on it. So on and so on. And then you can pay 2 and sacrifice to destroy everything with that mana value. It is a good pseudo spot removal that you have to build a little bit, but it's tutorable, it's recurable in most situations, and it's sometimes you just need to play it for 0 and pop all the tokens. Tormod Script and Nihil Spellbomb and Relic Progenitus all serve the same basic function of just generic, cheap graveyard removal. Nihil Spellbomb also lets you draw a card when you use it. Relic lets you draw a card. This just costs 0. I like having graveyard hate. I've played enough graveyard decks to know that I don't want to let other people get away with it. Pithy Needle, it's searchable. It can shut down commanders almost wholeheartedly, and if your playgroup doesn't play a lot of artifact or enchantment removal, it usually starts around for a long time. Worst case, you can try and get it back through through other means. Already talked about Relic. Retrofitter Foundry. 1 mana artifact, and then it has a 3, a 2, a 1, and a 0 ability. The 2, 1, and 0 all have a tap requirement on it, but for 3 you untap it. For 2 in tapping you make a Servo. For 1 in tap and sack a Servo you make a Thopter. And for tap and sack a Thopter you make a 4/4 Construct. Plays well with Breya. Plays well with... I think there's another thing or two that makes tokens. Maybe not. But it makes tokens, just if we have a lot of mana, we can pump out a lot of dudes, and worst case we can turn them into 4/4s if the game lasts long enough. And then starting up on the Mana Rock area, we have a Soul Ring, Arcane, Azorius. I wish that'd stop bouncing around. Arcane, Azorius, Boros, Dimir, Izzet, Orzhov, Rakdos, Signets. They're just good mana rocks. They help color fix. If I have cycles, I like to run cycles, or as much of them as I can. So I have all the Signets. I have all the on-color talismans, Conviction, Creativity, Dominance, Hierarchy, Indulgence, Progress. I don't want to be too concerned about my color pips, but that's partially because I don't try to run too many duplicate color pips. I like to have a variety of my colors if need be. And then we have Cranial Plating. If you ever played against Affinity, you know this thing hits, makes anything into a truck if they can connect. And then it has a double black, not always relevant, but sometimes you just need to whoop, it's moved over to somebody else. Then we have the new version in Cranial Ram. It is a black and a red for an equipment with Living Weapon. And then equipped creature gets +X+1, where X is the number of artifacts you control. The only difference from that and this is that this gives a +1 toughness and comes with a germ and no insta-equip. Generally, these are really good. If you can equip them, you get a lot of extra damage out of them, especially if you don't them on a random flyer. I already talked about talismans. This is something I've been trying out, and Nexus of Becoming. 6 mana artifact. Being in my combat, I draw a card, and then I may exile an artifact or creature from my hand. If I do, I create a token that's a 3/3 Golem artifact creature in addition to its other types. Pretty decent with like creatures you don't want to end up actually casting, and then or you can put like talismans or signets. Like, yeah, they can swing in a later turn. I don't need them for mana at this point. It's extra body. Namely, it's just there to draw cards, but the random extra bodies always help. Next up, we have an Aura of Silence. 1 white for an aura or an enchantment that says artifact and enchantment spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast, and then you can sacrifice it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. I've played long enough to know artifacts and enchantments can be broken. I don't care if you play them, but I'm going to slow you down a little bit to make sure you don't get oppressive, and if need be, pop a singular one. Again, a slight diversity on the artifact enchantment destruction / removal. I like to diversify and stuff like that. Then Gur per Aether Grid. 2 in a red enchantment. Says tap 2 untapped artifacts, ping something for 1. As you can see, we have a bunch of artifacts before we even get to the lands, and most of our creatures artifacts. We have 23 regular artifacts. We can usually activate this and like poke stuff down if need be, or if we can't get through, we can like eventually end the game by like, nope. If I can't attack you, I'm gonna poke you at the end of whoever's turn before I untap. Then we got the full artifact cycle in Ancient Den, Great Furnace, Vault of Whispers down here, and Sea of the Synod. I have the 6 Shocklands in Blood Crypt, Godless Shrine, Hallowed Fountain, Sacred Foundry, Steam Vents, and a Watery Grave. This is one I'm probably taking out before too long, just because I already have enough Graveyard hate and the fact that this comes into play tapped all the time. I definitely think about changing this out. Command Tower speaks for itself for 4 colors, just generally good. Probably swapping this Bazooka Bog out for another fast land, because I've got a Courtyard, I've got a Seachrome Coast, and where's the other one? Oh, Darkslick Shores. Darkslick Shores. Helps fix mana. Like I said, I like running as close to full cycles as possible. That's partially the reason I'm thinking about taking this out. I don't know what's on this off the top of my head. I got all the bridges in here. Exotic Orchard is generally good. We are 4 colors. There's very slim chance we're not going to have at least 1 to 3 of our colors. Glimmer Void, it's a rainbow land. We have a bunch of artifacts. It's just generally good. It's usually not going to die. If it dies, we're in a bad spot to begin with. That's a Shockland, that's a bridge. Adventurous Fair, a legendary land. Begin your upkeep. If you have Metalcraft, you gain a life. Taps for a colorless, where you can pay 4, tap, and sack. That's another Metalcraft ability. You search your library for an artifact, put in your hand. Generally good. It just helps you get stuff back, or find specific things you're looking for. Usually it's just, hey, I'm gonna gain a life. Hey, I'm gonna gain a life. Oh, I need to go get something? I'll go search. I run 5 basics, 2 islands, 1 plains, 1 swamp, a mountain, and... am I missing one? 2 island, a plains, a swamp, and a mountain. Okay, yeah, that's all of them. Then a Mito Toro. 2 mana tap, draw a card, effectively 3 mana draw a card. Sucks that you're giving your opponent stuff, but you're getting something also, and so I'm not as concerned about it. Like, situationally, sure, not that great, but I'm not going to pass down. It doesn't impact the mana base that much between the rocks and the dual land setup that we have here. So usually it's just 2 mana tap, draw a card. Sure, your opponent draws, but it's like, no, I'm digging for something. I need an answer, or sure, everybody can have a card. I just want to draw more. Another bridge, a bridge. Spire of Industry. It's a newer age style Glimmer Void. Taps for a colorless, or I can pay 1 and a life and add a mana of any color if I have an artifact. Strip Mine. I always liked having Strip Mine. If I had a Wasteland, I'd probably try to find room in here too. Just because I will hit a land or 2 if they're being problematic. But I'm not a huge fan of LD and decks like this. Like, if I'm built around it, sure, but this one is not. So it's just like, this is aimed for either grudgy things or hitting annoying utility lands. And that's my Breya deck this time around. If you guys like this type of content, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Always taking comments down the bottom. I always try to at least read and or comment to them. Any recommendations that you guys want to see me do, you can leave that in the comments. And I think I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.